after an Eagles Super Bowl loss. Hell of a game. One of the most exciting Super Bowls I've ever watched, and I've watched almost every single one. I'm going back to Super Bowl III. But a Harrison Butker late field goal gives the championship to the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid, which some people here on the stream or the trolls are digging that one in, losing to Andy Reid. I'm okay with losing. If you're going to lose somebody, you might as well lose to Andy Reid. But we're talking about it here on Birds 365. We got Paul Domowitch from JAKIBSports.com, the 33rd team, to chime in and give us his take on the game. And Damo does not usually go with the hat look. What hat you got on today, Domowitch?
Hall of Fame, the Dick Vermeil Hall of Fame hat.
There we go. Yeah, nice. Hall of Famers. 2 Jets, by the way, for Jody. We get Jody.
Joe Klecko, Philly guy for you Birds 365 people. Come on, a Philly guy, St. James High School Temple. Philly guy got into the Hall of Fame this weekend.
Yeah, long overdue for Joe Klecko.
Correct.
And Terrell Revis, but we got a game to talk about, Damo.
We do.
What were your first days? I mean, at halftime, I was watching Rihanna in the stadium and saying, "Wow, this team is pretty good." I'll go Larry David. And all of a sudden, they come out after the extended halftime, completely different team. What do you think happened?
Well, for one, I mean, I credit Andy Reid with, he knew going out in the second half, he couldn't just lay all this in Mahomes' lap. He knew he had to run the ball, which, Andy, he hates running the ball. Ran the ball 19 times in the second half. They outrushed the Eagles. I mean, one of the best running teams in the league was outrushed by a team that hates to run, which speaks to the defense. Yeah. And that, in my mind, it was a huge difference in the game. But, you get down to that last 2 minutes. I still like their chances. I mean, I thought, okay, they're going to stop them, make them settle for a Butker field goal, have a minute and a half left. And, I was confident that they'd be able to take it down the field and at least tie the game and send it into overtime. And then we get the defensive hold.
What did you think of the holding? Now, Bradberry said, I held him. I mean, to me, that ended it. That put a period on it for me. What was your take on it?
I thought it was a little more than ticky-tack, so I think it had to be called. I mean, there are some calls you watch a game and you just think that the officials went way out of the way to put their imprint on a game. I don't think that was the case here. If he doesn't hold him, Juju Smith-Schuster's probably open and they get a touchdown. So, I thought it was a legitimate call.
I don't think the referees decided this game, except for the fact that a couple of these replays, and maybe it was because there were questionable calls in the playoffs that had to do with replays, one specifically with Philadelphia where there was no replay on the Devonta Smith catch, that they were making sure they were going to take a look at every single angle of the 70 cameras that they had there. They had 2 replays that had to take 10 minutes apiece, Damo. Did that have any effect on the game, the momentum back and forth, or was that just due diligence, the NFL doing it the right way?
Yeah, I don't think it had any effect. It was annoying. I think they mentioned at one point 30 different camera angles.
Yeah, I was going to say how many HD cameras they got there? 70.
Yeah, they're going from all. I mean, I'm convinced that if you have enough cameras and slow-mo enough, there is no ball has ever been caught in the NFL.
Yeah. That's a tough break. That's a game where it's 1:00 Sunday. Maybe you get away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the Super Bowl, it's going to be a lot more difficult. But let's talk about the defense because that's the elephant in the room. I mean, 4 possessions, Damo, in the second half, touchdown. And the only reason they didn't have a 4th touchdown is because Jerick McKinnon was savvy enough to realize, hey, if I get down here, we're going to win this game. They could have had 4 touchdowns. So that's not good. And Nick brought, one of them was the short field because he had the Tony punt return. So you can't blame the defense. Nick also brought up the fumble in the first half. So, even if you want to be nice and take 14 points off the total and not blame it on the defense and say complimentary football. You can't give up touchdown in the second half.
Yeah. Everything is connected to something else in football. They were able to run the ball, I think, partly because, Gannon felt he had to give up something. He thought he could avoid that and not give up some of the key runs they had. But the success they had with the run affected the pass rush, and the pass rush was struggling already. I mean, that was the difference in the game, was the fact that the Chiefs' offensive line won the battle against the Eagles' defensive line, and I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah, that's a good offensive line.
Yeah,
I'm going to tap myself on the back, Damo, because I said that was the key matchup of the game. Yeah. I said the Eagles' defensive line against the Chiefs' offensive line. Now, I thought the Eagles were going to win that battle, but I was saying all week, the Chiefs' offensive line is better than people in Philadelphia think. That's in the conversation for being the second best offensive line. I thought four really good players.
Their interior line, I thought, okay, they're probably they may neutralize Hargrave and Cox, but the Eagles still appeared to have an advantage on the edges against their tackles. Orlando Brown, I've never been a big fan of. Andrew Wiley had given up nine sacks this year. Reddick had his moments. He's the one. He tripped up the quarterback early on.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the battle they won. That's the key battle in this game that was won by the Chiefs and probably ended up deciding this game.
Well, I'll give another one that was won by the Chiefs. Sorry to say, Eagle fans. The Chiefs' offensive line got the better of the defensive line of the Eagles. How about the Eagles' offensive line, which we sing the praises of, the best offensive line, bar none, the drop-off between the Eagles and every other offensive line. They didn't run the ball worth squat yesterday. The best runs that Jalen's had were pass plays where he came out of the pocket afterwards. I guess they're holding their block, so you give him minimal amount of credit, but it was Jalen just creating. It wasn't designated running plays from Jalen that were the whole fact that he led the team in rushing. Sanders, nothing. Gainwell, nothing. Boston Scott, nothing. This is the offensive line of the National Football League, and the Chiefs' defensive line, which some people question this side of Chris Jones coming in, held their ground against them. What happened to the Eagles' offensive line, Dama?
Well, I mean, they scored 35 points. Hurts,
and they had 417 yards, by the way.
Hurts had 10 rushing touchdowns. I mean, first downs. I'm sorry. A lot of them on quarterback sneaks, but I mean, they couldn't stop that. All they had, it was a 4-down game for the Eagles from the start, which helped. The fact that they had to settle for 2 field goals ended up killing them, along with that defensive hold. This was that both of these teams went in as the second and third ranked red zone offenses in the league. And the Eagles twice had to settle for field goals, and again, that ended up being the difference in the game.
Yeah. And I thought Miles had a bad game. Now, he got hurt on the first play. Maybe it had to do with the injury, but he did not play well. I don't know. You guys probably had a better look than me on the second potential Nick Bolton fumble recovery for a return when he hit Miles Sanders. That looked really close to me. I don't know if it were a catch or it wasn't a catch, but I don't know. Miles just seemed off to me. I think it was more Miles than the offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, early on, and from the moment he arrived, the thing that drives me crazy about Miles Sanders is everything's got to go outside.
I kicked it outside. It was like he was a rookie. First play of the game. Inside zone, he's kicking it outside.
And there were some holes a couple of times. Yeah. I mean, he had some big creases, and it was like he just passed them by. I mean, Miles isn't going to be back. I think that's a kind of a fait accompli.
I think, but to Jody's point, Damo, the way Isaac Pacheco is running, he runs hard. If he was running behind the Eagles' offensive line, I think it would have been completely different. If you're a north-south runner just going downhill, Jody, I don't think you'd be talking about the Eagles' offensive line. I think they played well, as they normally do.
You know, on the list of things to do in the offseason for the Eagles, obviously they've got a ton of dilemmas with their free agents. I mean, they've got 19 unrestricted free agents. But they've got one thing they've got to go out and get is a downhill running back. I mean, I love Kenny Gainwell, and he's going to be a big factor in this offense going forward. But he's not the slasher, the power guy that they need that. They need that kind of guy to complement him. And I think that'll be high on their list of offseason people they got to get.
They have a downhill running back. Unfortunately, he also needs to play quarterback, and he has more important responsibilities. But he's a hell of a downfield running back.
There you go.
And by the way, that play to Miles, you talk about cutting edge. He had the ball. He took 2 steps. He didn't make a quote unquote football move. If he had, that's a fumble. And, by the way, Nick Bolton was the unquestioned best linebacker on the field. I know we like the Eagle linebackers, TJ Edwards, Kaiser White. Nick Bolton
he played
easily the best linebacker on the field yesterday.
Yeah.
All right, Damo, I liked what the Eagles said after the game. It was painful. I know Eagle fans are in mourning this morning. They had the chance to win the game. Won't say they should have won the game, but they sure as hell could have won the game. But I like the fact that Sirianni said, hey, we're not going to blame one call. We lost the game over the entire length of the game. They are that good. Gave credit to his opponent. Jalen said after the game, yes, you grow from pain, and this will be something that we'll use as a learning experience to become better with. I even like the fact that Bradberry admitted he held on the play. I thought they handled their business after the game real well. Can you take any solace from that if you're an Eagle fan?
Yeah, well, you can be. You know what? I listened to Jalen. Jalen will never fumble again in the rest of his career. He is going to. I mean, he goes into the offseason with this is what I'm going to improve at, and that's going to be. I mean, he didn't fumble that much in his career, but that one was. That one he's going to take that one hard. And I tell you what, I mean, nobody's going to ever get a ball out of his hands again in the near future.
Well, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, Jalen's going to go into the offseason with that mentality. And he doesn't fumble it anyway, typically. I think that was his third fumble of the year. But the opportunity here, Jody and I have been talking about it. Like, I still think this is the best Eagles team of the modern era. They're never going to be regarded as that because they didn't win the Super Bowl. Right. But I still think they're the best team. And moving forward, you mentioned those free agents. It looks like Shane Steichen's going to be the coach in Indianapolis. Jonathan Gannett's going to be the coach in Arizona. They're probably going to take at least one assistant with them. So you're going to have significant movement on the coaching staff. This opportunity, Damo, man, it's tough to imagine another season like this one. And that to me is more disappointing than the actual loss that they didn't take advantage of the opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a team that just, is going to crash and burn after getting
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, they're going to have some difficult decisions to make. The chemistry is going to be different next year, particularly on defense. You just don't know what the effect's going to be. You cannot. When you get an opportunity like this, you can't afford to squander it because you might not get another opportunity. I think they will, but Kansas City ain't going away. And somebody asked, it was funny after the game. Somebody asked Andy, Andy, there's been these retirement rumors, and he looked at Mahomes and said, I think I'm going to stick around for a while. I mean, Mahomes is only going to get better. It's like somebody said the week before the game, the Chiefs had the best player, the Eagles had the best team. Last night, the best player won.
By the way, Was he the best player on the field yesterday? Because I think Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field yesterday.
Well, I mean, in a single, you were talking about last night's performance because of the angle and
just
everything.
last night.
You're probably right. Yeah. Jalen.
Not overall.
He came. The fumble notwithstanding, I mean, he played a huge game. I mean,
he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Some of those tight window throws to Dallas Goedert. People are talking about the downfield stuff. Trent McDuffie was in a position to make a play on that AJ touch. He just lost the ball.
Yeah.
He didn't target it well, but some of those intermediate throws to Dallas Goedert, they were tight window throws. And then the running aspect, Super Bowl record, 3 touchdowns, ties the Super Bowl. And the 2-point conversion, he just carried the team when they're down 35-27. Yeah. If the Eagles find a way to win that game, I told Jody, that drive would go down in Eagles lore when they're down 35-20. Now it's a footnote. He played a great game, Jalen Hurts.
He did. And, I mean, like I said, 10 rushing first downs by a quarterback. This is going to be a part of his game forever. I mean, the people that think he's going to stop, not going to run because it's going to shorten his career. I mean, he knows how to protect himself. He's a fullback, essentially, in a quarterback in a fullback's body. And it's just such an important part of his game. It's going to continue. There are things he needs to improve at from a passing standpoint. One thing you saw Kansas City do yesterday was when they flushed him, it was always to the left. He still is not that's not his strength. He got better at it this year. Last night, he was not able to turn his body to make those throws. Most of them he just threw away to avoid a sack. But I think he needs to learn how to step up in the pocket more and throw that way rather than always take it outside. But he's going to keep getting better. I don't think, he's a long way from his ceiling. And that's good news for the Eagles.
Very good news if that's the case. Sirianni did say last night in his post-game press conference that it was a question about handing out blame, and he wisely said, well, we need to look at the tape, which means he knows that they had an issue, but doesn't want to talk about it just yet. So when in doubt, we got to look at the tape first. You don't usually have to when you lose a game in the Super Bowl because you got months before you're going to play another game. But I would start breaking down that game film immediately because Dallas Goedert is a phenomenal tight end and a talented player. Kelsey had 81 yards, Goddard had 80. So it was that close. And the way that they get Kelsey as open as they do is a thing of beauty. If I heard it once over the weekend, I heard it 10 times, the same question I've been asking for a month. Not how does Kelsey get open? How the hell does he get so friggin' wide open? Not only open, but nobody else in the picture. Everyone on the planet knows they're throwing the ball to when he's wide open. Can the Eagles learn from that? Can Dallas Goedert be the Kelsey of the NFC?
Absolutely. Goddard's a tremendous player already. And I think he's going to keep getting better, and his chemistry with Hurts is going to keep getting better. I think he needs to become a bigger red zone weapon, although in the red zone, the pass is secondary for the Eagles, or at least it was this season. I mean, they run the ball inside the 20. But, I also think you're going to see more of, last night for the first time in a while, you saw Jalen be willing to look to Gainwell when he was under pressure and get the ball outside to him. Now, Kansas City did a good job of limiting the yards after the catch to Gainwell when he caught the ball in the flat. But I think that's another aspect of their passing game. They need to become a bigger factor. But it's funny when Andy was here. The only thing people focused on was his game management. Oh, he's stupid. He doesn't know how to manage the clock. You saw yesterday, this guy is one of the great schemers in the history of.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney. We're saying, how did they get so wide open? That I brought up with Jody. I'm like, who thinks Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney are getting the football in that situation? Number one. You guys are probably right. All right, I'm gonna jump all over Travis Kelce. That was one of them.
Yeah.
There's like three guys jumping Travis Kelce.
Yeah, with that motion with Sky Moore when he's motioning across, like he's coming across the formation. Avonte Maddox just got completely suckered because he was supposed to be on him. He comes inside, and then once he comes inside, he starts playing the run. In the meanwhile, Sky Moore is reversing it and motioning left, and he's like nobody within 10 yards of him. And the same thing with Kelce. I mean, the thing I keep wondering is, why don't you hit him at the line? Now I realize they put him in motion a lot. They move him off the line. They find ways to make it difficult to do that. But in my mind, that's the only way to slow him down. It is to delay him getting into his route, because once he does, he's got you. But nobody does that. As the Eagles certainly didn't do it yesterday.
But I mean, the Eagles' offense, it's a little bit give and take, right? Because the Eagles' offense is, it's RPO based, so they don't run a lot of motion. They don't do a lot of these tricks that Andy does. Like Andy was 29-3 now with a bye week. I mean, Andy's ready. That's what I said. You knew Kansas City was going to be prepared, and he's got all this motion. He's got all these alignments down pat, but he runs a different offense. I mean, the Eagles' offense is darn successful, but it's pretty simple because it's an RPO offense. All the bells and whistles are not part of that offense. So how do you mesh those two?
Yeah, good question. But they'll find ways to make Goddard more of a factor. Although this is, their passing game is going to be a wide receiver based passing game. That's why they got AJ Brown. That's why they're paying him $100 million. That's why Devonta Smith's next contract is going to be in that same range. So, Goddard is such a valuable weapon when they do shut down those wide receivers or find a way to take them out on third down plays. So that's the challenge for Nick and probably his next offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson.
Mm-hmm. All right, Damo. Yeah, you got Brian Johnson as the new offense coordinator because Shane Steichen's going to be the head coach of the Colts. John's got Jonathan Gannon getting the gig in Arizona. I'm not sure after last night's second half defensive performance. Where will Michael Clay be the assistant special teams coach next year?
Oh.
I think he's going to be a casualty here. Yeah. I mean,
maybe who knows? You need everybody needs a scapegoat. If Jeffrey's proven
why do you think I brought up Johnny Mac? This is a Jeff Lurie special. Somebody's got to pay, and his name is Michael Clay.
Yeah.
In his defense, punt return has not been a problem this year. I think their longest punt return before last night was 20 yards that they gave up. I mean, their problem was they couldn't, their returns, but punt coverage seemed to be one.
By the way, was awesome.
Yeah.
Was really awesome. Good return. Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny when I'm watching that play on TV, the return by Tony, when he reversed field. You're watching. You're saying there's got to be somebody over there, right? There's got to be somebody over there. Then all of a sudden, the only person over there is the punter. But it was a line drive.
You could see it because we were in the end zone with you could see it. They had the wall. I mean, it was set up perfectly. And we were talking all year at some point it was going to hurt the Eagles, and it did. It came in the Super Bowl. It came late, but you know what? They were able to recover, and they went down 35-7. They came back to tie it though. So I can't give Jody's right though. Jeffrey Lurie has this history of I don't know if he can scapegoat somebody when he goes to the Super Bowl, but I guess he can. I mean. I don't blame Michael Clay as much as I blame. There's not much you can blame. Here's what there's not much you can blame Howie on. Great roster, executive of the year, deservedly so.
All right, let me jump in here. Should Howie Roseman have gotten them a better third wide receiver? Because as you mentioned, Sky Moore out of nowhere.
That's part of it. That's part of it. But before I'll add that to it, I was saying the Chris Maragoses of the world, the Brian Bremans of the world, even they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like they used to get that one or two guys that were special teams players. They don't do that anymore. I can't blame that on Michael Clay.
Well, you know, I mean,
but to Jody's point as well, third receiver as well.
Well, I don't think
that Howie was great, but
that punt return, the man I blame is Cypress.
Yeah, it was a bad punt too.
It was a low line drive.
They got two bad punters.
You want to talk about a move that they're going to forever regret? It's when they didn't re-sign Cam Johnston.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, nobody pays attention to punters that come and go, but I thought he was going to be
punters on the 53, and neither can punt. Jody brought up Quez Watkins. Quez was another guy. I mean, I think it's kind of comical at this point. You know, I mean, that's what you do. But in back in the spring last year, the Eagles were talking up. Oh, we think Quez Watkins can be a number 2 receiver. We think Kerry Vincent and Tay Gowan could be number 2 cornerbacks. They're going to fight for it. Yeah. And, you know, never listen to what they say, watch what they do. They made it very clear they needed to be better at receiver. Long before they got A.J. Brown, they went after Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk and Allen Robinson. They wanted a wide receiver. They got a great one. They need a third wide receiver, though. They play so much 11. They need a better third wide receiver, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you saw yesterday. I haven't seen the final snap numbers, but every time I looked, it was or at least in the first half, Pascal was out there and not Watkins because he's a better run blocker. Watkins just doesn't fit this offense. They need a guy that can block. They need a bigger body, a sturdier body, because that third wide receiver does so much running with in their offense, or so much blocking. You know, I think maybe they think they can get by when they go with empty sets. It's Gainwell that's out wide. You know, maybe they feel that kind of offsets, you know, any limitations by Watkins. I don't know, but yeah, it's another position that they'll probably, you know, if you've seen a few mentions of them drafting a wide receiver. It's not going to be in the first round, but I think I could see them taking one, you know, day 2.
Believe it or not, Quez played twice as many snaps as Pascal did. Yeah, that's something they need to address.
Yeah. I think most of them were in the second half, though. Well, they used a lot more 12 in the first half. You know, I'll tell you a guy that just you didn't see, and you didn't see him much the whole year. Jordan Davis. I expected more from him. You know, I watched. You know,
I'm not going to be back, so yeah. It's his job.
He's going to have to play a bigger role. Obviously, you drafted him, you moved up and drafted him for a big reason, but he needs to become more of a down in, down out factor than he's been as a rookie.
Agreed. All right, Damo, last thing for me. John and I debated this earlier. This year's team as compared to the Super Bowl winning team from 2 years ago. Can you say this year's team was better than that team after having lost the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, this was the best team in football. It just did not play well enough last night to win the game. But I mean, I felt the 2017 team, even though it won 13 games, you know, I mean, without Wentz, basically caught lightning in a bottle in the playoffs. I mean, Nick Foles never played like that again in his life. So, you know, and if he didn't in those 3 playoff games, you know, they don't.
I would say too. He didn't play that well against Atlanta. People forget, but then it was just lights out against Minnesota and New England. Lights out.
Yeah. And if Julio Jones is it Julio Jones? That ball, if he that ball,
got his hand on the ball and he ends up.
Keanu Neal, if he makes the interception, in the second quarter,
That's the beauty of football. I mean, well, a hand on a jersey last night was the difference in the game. I mean, I'm sure it's going to kill Eagle fans all season long to think about that.
That's how close. That's what I'm the same as you. I think this is the better team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes the better team doesn't win. I mean, it happens all the time. I always go back to the 16-0 Patriots. The Patriots won all that time, and their best team didn't win. Their best team they ever had didn't win. That was better than every single Super Bowl team they had, and they didn't win.
Yeah, and I'm a guy who believes you got to finish a deal. The last game, it just does ratchet in importance every single game, and when you lose the last one, you can't look back and go, but. So you writer guys stick together, us radio guys, YouTube guys look at things differently. Domo, great stuff today. Thanks for getting up with us. We're going to tap into you all off season. Did a great job on JAKIB Sports all year long. We'll read you on 33rd Team as well. Go ahead, take a deep breath and take a couple weeks off. We'll get you back on in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good trip back, John.
Thanks, Tom.
Paul Domowitch, 33rd Team, and JAKIBSports.com contributes to our website here as well. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, the Mac guys, we got to come back. Sorry to say, not only a bow on the show, but a bow on the season. But we got the whole offseason to talk about here on